Alright people, here's some eye candy for you, because when I sit down and zoom in you won't be able to see the rest of the stuff on the table. But yeah, this is the new DAIWA Luvias, and believe it or not, I compared it with all of these reels here before I form my opinion. And I'm gonna do this video a little bit different actually. I'm gonna start with my conclusion, and then I'll give you the most important stuff first, and the further the video goes, it will be less and less important details. Hoping whoever doesn't have the time, or whoever can, bear only so many minutes of Eastern European accent, can still get the most important stuff of the video. But yeah, let's start. Alright, so here is my conclusion after playing with these reels for a few weeks now. The king of ultralight fishing, without any doubt and without any competition actually, is the 2019 Shimano Vanquish. No reel in current production comes even close to the build quality and the performance and the feel of this reel in actual fishing. The second best reel in my opinion is actually not the new Luvias, but this discontinued DAIWA Presso Limited. This is a 2017 reel, but in terms of feel and performance, this is the closest thing that you can buy right now to the Shimano Vanquish. There is actually one category where the Presso beats the Vanquish, in my opinion. That's the aesthetics. This is the only category where DAIWA frequently beats Shimano. But in terms of the resistance and the inertia, as low as it is in this DAIWA Presso here, and it is really low, the lowest of any other reel if not for the Vanquish, but it is still not quite up there to compete with the Vanquish. And also the line lay, really good, but not as perfect as on the Vanquish. And if I have to pick a number 3 on this table, it's still not the Luvias, but for me, number 3 is the DAIWA Theory. And the reason I like DAIWA Theory better than all of the LT reels, all of these Tatulas, all of the Tatula versions, Ballistic is a Tatula version, and Ballistic itself has so many versions. The reason I like this reel better than all of the LT reels is the spool. It has a larger diameter spool, which makes the drag smoother because bigger diameter gives more leverage to the line, and bigger diameter spool is easier to turn. But the drag is a little bit smoother, and at the same time the noise of the drag is a little bit crisper and more vibrant, and overall listening and working with the drag on this reel is just more enjoyable than any LT reel. Plus the bigger spool gives you bigger coils. Bigger coils means less line twist. Your line is just straighter, farther, casting, easier casting, quieter casting. So a lot of benefits from this spool. So this is my number 3 reel. Okay, so what about the new DAIWA Luvias then? Where does this reel place? And the answer is pretty low. This reel has been nothing but a disappointment for me just the first moment I got it out of the box. I'm gonna tell you something kind of ridiculous and absurd right now. But I have thought this over, and just trust me, I'm not saying these words lightly, but if you can forget about all of the engineering accomplishments in this reel. How they put big gears in a small body, you know, how they saved weight from everywhere, the handle, the Zion, the spool, everything in this reel is a little bit lighter. If you can forget about all of the engineering accomplishments that you see on paper, and you just close your eyes, and you just focus on the fishing impressions. How does the reel feel when you actually fish it? This reel feels pretty much like a $50 Legalis LT. Okay, the drag, the resistance, I mean the handle knob, I mean the drag knob. It just looks and feels, if you close your eyes and if you could forget about all of this amazing stuff in your hand, it just feels like a little bit lighter Legalis. This reel here feels absolutely nothing. I mean, I refuse to even compare it to the Shimano Vanquish, okay? Nothing in no category, and I'll go category by category. In no category does it compare to the Vanquish. Maybe looks, I know that's personal. Yeah, the Vanquish is not really a head-turning reel, but other than aesthetics, yeah, DAIWA has a little bit smoother corners, but other than aesthetics, there is nothing where it comes close to the Vanquish. The biggest problem that I have with the new Luvias is the resistance. The resistance is just depressing. It's unacceptable. The reel feels like it is full of some very thick grease that is made for 6,000 size catfishing reel. This is what I feel when I turn the handle. And this reel has been spun for, you know, hours and hours. I fished it several times on Fox River on the Algonquin Dam. Maybe I'll show you some footage of that. And at this point, I don't believe that with further use, the reel will lose the resistance. There is just new kinds of grease that no longer fall off the teeth of the reel. I had experience with my own Legalis with the 2500 size, not this one. This is a 1000 size, but I put some Aqua Shield grease on the 2500 size. Several months I was waiting for this Aqua Shield grease to come off the gears. It never fell. And I had to open the reel again, clean the grease again, and that took me hours to clean that grease and put high quality Shimano grease on the gears, and then it got the low friction feel again. But the resistance in this reel is just simply not acceptable for such a small reel. And you may say, okay, whatever, you can just clean the grease and put new grease. You can't do that. I'll talk about this at the end of the video because I want to go over all of the other stuff, but I don't think you can replace this grease short of, you know, sending it to a DAIWA center or paying somebody like $100 or more dollars. In terms of resistance and inertia, nothing comes close to this guy here. Well, okay, this reel here, the DAIWA Presso, is really close, but it's already discontinued, so it's hard to recommend this reel. Plus, it kind of costs more than the Vanquish. But back to the Luvias and how do the inertia and the resistance feel on the Luvias comparatively? The startup feeling is very similar to the startup feeling in the Legalis, you know, almost identical, even though the reasons are kind of different. The Legalis has more inertia, and because inertia is pretty much a function of weight, it's also a function of geometry, but I believe the geometry on the rotors is kind of the same. So the Legalis has heavier rotor, heavier internals, so when you spin it, it has more inertia. This reel doesn't have as much inertia because it's lighter, but it has the grease or whatever they put inside, maybe some other seals, I don't know, but it has a lot of resistance. So the startup feeling is the same, but the stopping feeling is not the same. The Legalis does require more power, more force to stop the reel once you are spinning, just because you have to stop this heavy rotor. Here you don't have a heavy rotor to stop, you have resistance, but resistance actually helps you to stop the reel. So similar startup feeling. The Legalis has more inertia and it's more difficult to stop the reel. Again, when you jig, reel, stop. This is all very important for user experience. Ultralight jigging, you need very low inertia and very low resistance. However, if you're just cranking like a little, I don't know, spinner or something, whatever, little spoon, and you're just spinning like this, the Legalis has like no resistance. It is so easy to turn, and the inertia is actually helping you in this. If you're just smoothly reeling, the inertia is just helping you. So in these cases, the Legalis feels like the more expensive of the two reels. Because this one, even if you just reel, you're not starting, you're not stopping, you're just reeling, and the resistance is just here all the time, inescapable, just depressing, saddening resistance. So that's how I would, that's the best as I can describe the inertia and the resistance of the new Luvias. The next big area of disappointment for me is the entire drag system on the reel. The whole drag is directly lifted from the $50 Legalis. I mean, even if you look at the knobs on top, the knob is exactly the same. But I disassembled the drags on these two reels. By the way, this is DAIWA Luvias. I don't think I mentioned so far. This is DAIWA Luvias LT 2000S, and this is DAIWA Legalis 1000. Okay, and this here is DAIWA Exceller 1000. So I removed the drag systems on these two reels, and I swapped the steel washers, and I swapped the felt washers and the drag knobs, and everything is exactly the same on these two reels, and therefore the drag on the two reels feels the same, and it is the same. The other thing that is the same between these two reels is the drag clicker. The drag clicker has the same parts inside. The spool is different, but the clicking parts are the same, and therefore the two reels have the same Legalis sound that you are used to. All of the DAIWA LT reels, all the way to the Exist LT, have exactly the same clicker. I have expressed my dissatisfaction with this clicking sound. It is way too muffled. You know, you go fishing, you wait all day for a nice fish, you finally catch a nicer fish, it pulls some drag, and you can barely hear it. You know, I was really hoping, because this is a ultralight reel and it's brand new, it's very expensive. I was really hoping that DAIWA would put a different drag clicking system or a different drag altogether for this reel, but no. The whole thing is just straight up copied and lifted from the Legalis. It's not a bad drag, it's very smooth, and maybe not everybody wants a vibrant, you know, drag sound. Nothing wrong with it, but I was expecting something more than the Legalis. By the way, out of the box, the drag clicker on the Luvias comes with a lot of grease, which additionally muffles the sound of the clicker. I did clean the drag clicker on my reel, and it actually significantly improved the the sound of the drag. I'm gonna play you a quick sound bit here, and maybe you can't tell the difference through the microphones and then the speakers on your playing device, but you're gonna have to trust me that cleaning the clicker on the Luvias does improve the sound quite a bit. Here is the line lay of the new DAIWA Luvias. Pretty damn good, as you can see, but not quite perfect, I would say. It's slightly concave in the middle. It's exactly the same line lay as in the Exceller, for example. Just pretty damn good again, but slightly concave in the middle. And as a matter of fact, all of the DAIWA reels have this exact same line lay, pretty damn good, but always a little bit concave in the middle. And that's because they all use the same oscillation. They have this locomotive gear, and I guess they tune them the same way, but they always look the same. Even the presso, even the theory, they always look the same. And I know some of you will say, well, Victor, what are you talking about? This looks pretty perfect to me. But it's not perfect. Let me show you what perfect looks like. This, my friends, is what perfect line lay looks like. Look at this, perfectly flat everywhere, from one end of the spool to the other end of the spool. This is 2.7 pound line, and it still is just perfectly laid. And on top of that, the Shimano line lay is slow oscillation. The DAIWA reels have medium fast, I would say, oscillation. This means how fast is the spool going up and down, and are the coils, you know, laying on top of each other like this on X, or are they laying like this parallel? When you have slow line lay oscillation, the coils are parallel, and you can fit more coils adjacent from the bottom of the spool to the top of the spool, and the line comes out easier and quieter, and you even get a little bit more casting distance. How much casting distance, I don't know, but I'll just tell you that all of the reels that need very far casting distance, like the surf reels, the high-end carp reels, always have very slow spool oscillation. So yeah, the line lay of the Luvias, pretty good, but not perfect, and not comparable again to the Shimano Vanquish. One area where the Luvias and the Legalis absolutely cannot compare is the weight. The Legalis, the specs on this particular reel, again the 2000 size, are only 150 grams. And okay, my reel weighs 153 grams, probably 3 grams of heavy grease that they packed between the gears here. But no matter how you look at it, it is just a really impressively light reel. The only reel that I have that is lighter than this, and you would have to compare the same sizes, 2000 versus 2000, 1000 versus 1000, is the Vanquish. And the Vanquish is only 5 grams lower. So the weight is really impressive, and that's good news, right? Finally somewhere where the Luvias beats the Legalis. Except that when I put this reel on all of my rods, except one rod, except on the major craft Truza rod, which is a $300 JDM rod. On any other rod, when I put this reel, the rod felt worse than when I put the Legalis. Because I have only one high-end JDM rod. All of my other rods actually balance better with a 185 gram reel. The whole combo, the rod itself, you know, it defies the laws of physics. But when you put a little bit heavier reel, the rod feels lighter, feels more balanced, and it's actually easier to jig with my rods with the Legalis than it is with the Luvias. The Luvias just makes my rods, again all except one, makes my rods more tip heavy. Now that the reel is so light, you can feel the weight of the tip. And I want to warn you, many of you are thinking I have custom rods or I have a $300 St. Croix rod. I have played a lot with the Legend Elite panfish, the $300 St. Croix rod. I think that's the best panfish rod. And that rod does not compare. It's an amazing rod. I'm going to buy it, but it does not compare to the feeling of the tip to a JDM, high-end JDM rod. It does not compare, and it will feel tip heavy with this reel. And all of the custom rods, you know, no matter how talented these people who make custom rods are, they just don't have the tools and the technology to add guides to the rod without adding too much weight. So I'm warning you, custom rods are not gonna cut it, and high-end St. Croix rods are not gonna cut it. The only way to take advantage of the low weight of this reel, the only way, is a high-end JDM rod. With anything else, the Legalis will balance better. And finally, I promised to talk about replacing the grease in this reel, because a lot of you are thinking, well, all of this resistance and, you know, heavy feel comes from the grease. I can just replace the grease. No, you can't. Let me tell you what you would have to do to replace the grease in this reel. First of all, after removing the handle here, you are stuck with removing this new, DAIWA calls it engine plate. I already called our local Illinois DAIWA dealer, asking them, do they have the tool for removing this side plate here? The dealer said no, DAIWA has not provided that tool yet to any of the dealers. Then I called Hedgehog in Japan. I sent them an email, and they were kind enough to reply immediately, and they told me they don't have that tool either, and they haven't heard of anybody who has that tool. So it's going to be very difficult to remove this side plate here already without scratching or, you know, damaging your reel. Next, you have to deal with this little screw they put on under the spool here that, I mean, it doesn't look like a tiny screwdriver will open this. You need some kind of special tool to remove that screw as well. Then under the screw, you have some kind of a locking nut that folds, the ears fold just like the nut on the propeller of a boat, if you've seen how that works. So I don't know if you'll be able to reuse this nut and flip the ears back on after you're done. And finally, even when you're done with all of this, you still have to worry about the mag seal, okay? You're gonna have to deal with these ferrofluids. You know, who wants to do this in their house, really? So mag seal is not something I think most people are willing to undertake, even if they could remove the side plate and this tiny little screw and this kind of weird nut that they put on top. And finally, both of my boxes here came without schematics. I cannot begin to describe to you how angry this makes me. The first thing I do when I get a new reel is analyze the schematics. DAIWA did not include the schematics for this reel. I called Randy as well, he didn't get schematics either. Why didn't DAIWA put the schematics? Again, I'm just furious about this. I want my schematics, DAIWA. You hear me? If you watch this video, somebody mail me or email me my schematics. So I'm very angry, and I'm thinking that DAIWA just did everything possible to discourage people from opening this reel. So I think I made a good case here that you are not replacing this grease in your house. My reel still has a fair amount of free play in the handle here. You know, I was hoping, more than the Vanquish, I was hoping that with this new design with the bigger side plate, they put a bigger bearing and they finally got rid of this free play here that is so annoying and, you know, persistent. Even in 2020, all of these reels on the table have free play, but this has more free play even than my Presso Limited. So this is a little bit disappointing, but yeah, like I said already, the whole look and feel and fishing impressions of this reel are just too similar to a DAIWA Legalis LT. Weight is the only real advantage, but you will need a true high-end JDM rod to take advantage of the weight. So yeah, that's all I have for this video, guys. I'm sorry if it was a little bit disappointing. I'm sorry if somebody from DAIWA is watching it and found it overly critical. I'm still a big fan of DAIWA. I own more DAIWA reels than all the other brands combined. But what can I do? It is what it is. These are my thoughts on this reel. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.